Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Welcome to Kim Gets Realty. This is going to be a podcast where we talk about everything real estate, from financing, home purchasing, viewing homes. What does your real estate agent really do for you? That's what we're going to talk about today, actually. I had a really interesting experience over the weekend. I was representing a buyer, and we went to look at a fantastic home, and we interacted with a terrific realtor who was representing the seller. Now, as a buyer's representative, I had met with the client, talked to them about their needs, asked them about what they were looking for, not just in a home, but in a community. This is Kim Gets Real because there's actually construction going on, and you will hear that in the background, so I do apologize. We talked about the community they wanted, all of their expectations. So that's the first thing I would mention. You want to work with a real estate agent that asks you a lot of questions about what you want, so they can help you find what you need, and you don't spend hours driving around at houses that aren't really going to be a match for you. In this particular case, I had spent a lot of time talking with my clients, and I had a really good idea of what they wanted. Actually took them to a slam dunk, beautiful home. They loved it. As we were going through the property, there were questions about the land. So it's a beautiful piece of property that is surrounded by land. So when you're in their backyard in this rural community, it's all woods and it's beautiful. They asked the seller's representative this question: can someone build on that property behind my house? It's such a good question, and I'm sure any one of you would have asked it also. You don't want to move in and then be surprised when the big truck comes in to lay a concrete foundation. So the seller's representative said, the land on either side of you is owned by two family members, and in the back it connects. They have told me they have no intention of ever building there, and in fact, they cannot build there because of zoning regulations. And my clients looked visibly relieved, and they kept looking through the house and the property. That was a red flag to me because I know that they're emotionally involved in this purchase. And my job is to not get emotionally involved. My job is to be thinking about your finances, how to save you money, how to negotiate expertly on your behalf, and how to make sure that the community is a match for whether you have kids or your retirement, whatever the community is that you need. There's so much more, but for the purposes of this video, this is a moment that made me think about, I'm not sure buyers really understand everything that the real estate agent should do for them. In this case, one of the things that I did for them at the end of the viewing of this fantastic property was we met and we chatted about all the things they loved and the few things that they didn't love. And I'm going to digress for a minute and tell you that one of the things they didn't love was the price. And I'm going to talk in our next podcast about ways to think about selling price that's a little different. There are some ways that you can think about a selling price where it's a tiny bit too high, but there are several other factors that if you take them into consideration, you might be better off buying the house that's a tiny bit high. That'll be for our next podcast, and I'll have a guest come on and talk with us. Back to my buyers. I said to them in the yard, keep in mind that my job is to advocate for you fiercely. I need to make sure that every detail of this sale, even just this viewing experience, is in your best interest. On the flip side, the seller's representative's job is to fiercely represent for the seller. And real estate agents do that honestly and fairly. They don't want anybody to come back later and say, oh, that realtor told me I could do this, or certain situations were different. We all want to represent fairly. That doesn't always mean that every detail that they know they share, because they can't. They're representing their seller, and their buyer's representative should be looking after you fiercely. In this case, I mentioned to them that while the owners may never plan to build anything on that lot behind their house, there may be zoning that prevents building behind their house, but my job is to say to you, we can't just take the seller's word on something like that. So when you go to view houses, remember that you're emotionally involved. I hope you'll bring an agent with you. My buyers that I was representing said, oh my gosh, that's right. I suggested if they're very interested, we go to the town and we find out, does that land, are there zoning issues that prohibit building on that land? Maybe we need to find that out for sure. And maybe that is the house for them, maybe it isn't. But always always have someone, a realtor, advocating for you, because when you go look at a house and you're emotionally involved, it is extremely difficult to think of all of the external factors that we're trained to think about. And believe me, I want my buyers and my sellers, because I represent both, I want them both to leave the transaction happy with me. And I know all realtors want the same thing. I want them to call me again. I want them to refer me. This is a relationship business. So I'm always representing my sellers fiercely through negotiations, financing, every detail of finding a great community. I think you get my point. So thanks for popping in with me today. I'm super excited to share everything I learn along the way with you. And I hope you'll stop in for our next podcast, which is going to be super interesting, because we're going to talk about that slightly overpriced house and why it might actually be a really good option for you. So this is Kim Gets Realty. Hey, I'll see you on the streets. Take care.